or not infographic, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Good
Hugo,
job,
once
dude.
again, dude, we're back. Oh, man, what a night this has been already. And game number 1 being taken by Edward Gaming in huge style. You can see the stats up there, 24-4 kills. My goodness, what a stomping. And frankly, I think it might have been a little bit expected as, just the differences in standing alone.
Yeah, I mean, really, a good indication of when when not EDG plays well is when their jungle and top laner do get going. Koro is one of the best players in China, and Clearlove, obviously, as I mentioned before to you before we were even streaming. In fact, he is my X factor of almost each and every game that Edward Gaming does play, and he did get the MVP this game. So, Clearlove played well, and when Clearlove does play well, it means all things are, for the most part, clicking for the side of Edward Gaming. Young Glory, they had a lot of things to work on. First of all, I think that they gave up a lot of strong power picks, even though I do not know if they were expecting the Karthus to come out of Edward Gaming's mid laner Yu. But at the same time, there's nowhere to go from up for the side of Young Glory at this point, because they're basically getting stomped nearly every game by, most teams.
Yeah, and a little bit troublesome for them. But
right.
they did try to keep it as close as they could. That you just saw the team fights not turning their way. And frankly, EDG definitely seemed to outpick them, that very unlikely seeming Karthus pick. I think he's picking up in popularity since, of course, the rework not quite making it to China just yet, but will be very, very soon, I believe.
Right. Yeah, I do think that it... Sorry, can you repeat that? You just cut off slightly from...
rework. The visual update certainly hasn't made it quite yet, as we saw in the last game, but there are, of course, just increasing variety of champions that are being picked up a little more popularly across a lot of the regions.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, we saw Clearlove on Jarvan this time, which is something that we haven't seen as much for a while in China, but starting to make a statement again.
Yeah, I mean, Jarvan is definitely... I consider Jarvan, right now the 3rd or 4th best jungler. He's really strong, really, really strong right now, especially with the buffs to his martial cadence, which did, we are in 4.9, so they are in this patch, in fact. A lot of people, seem to have the misconception that we're incredibly behind when we're actually not. So, and I do believe 4.10 is coming next week.
Very, very soon. It's already in OGN.
Yes. Yeah, it is already in OGN. They are playing with that tonight. I believe the KT Arrows and I believe the two teams from the Najin organization are facing off. So I would be there if I wasn't here with you, Devin, casting the EDG and YG game, and obviously we're into picks and bans.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm really happy to have you here, Hubo. Picks and bans already starting up. Yeah, here we go. On the side of Edward Gaming, Yasuo banned out, of course. That's very much targeted at Diangoon. He plays a pretty good Yasuo, and he's a little underwhelming on a lot of other champions, so they're really trying to thin out his pool a lot more, also focusing LeBlanc on him. And Kale taken away, that's just kind of a standard ban.
Yeah, I mean, Kale is another good ban for Diangoon, though. And, the Yasuo and the LeBlanc is banned nearly every game a team is on blue side, or, red side too, against Diangoon, just because Diangoon hasn't really posted any other significant performances with any other mid lane champions besides with that LeBlanc. His Yasuo wasn't even that great. So, and also, of note is the fact that Young Glory banned Braum on red side. Braum is on the first rotation status, either picked or banned in nearly every Chinese game. So Braum is incredibly strong right now. But Edward Gaming decides to lock in their support first, Thresh, and we all know how good FCZF is on that champion.
Over on the other side, Young Glory looking to capitalize on a few power picks that were left open. Jax, one of those pick ban champions, almost 100% of the time gets immediately scooped up right there by number 1. And the jungler, also Yinfu, he goes over to Kha'Zix. This is something that's been seeing a huge revitalization, especially with the influx of junglers that like that style, such as Insect, who we'll see a little bit later tonight.
Yeah, I mean... I don't think we should be talking about that game because I feel like if we do start, I'm just not going to stop because that game really is going to decide.
You have got a spiel that's going to come out. I can't wait to hear this. Okay, I hope I get a little bit of a chance to say 1 or 2 things, but I do love listening to your insight, Hubo. You have a whole lot of knowledge that I aspire to.
It helps when you have the sexiest voice in League of Legends. No, but Young Glory does lock in the Jax and the Kazakhs here. Jax was actually played by Koro in the last game too. Fairly good, fairly large success. And Jax and Kazakhs are another set of champions. But the Vayne lock-in we do see. So Vayne is fairly weak in 4.9, and I do think that she's even weaker in 4.10, despite the fact that none of her items really got that heavily nerfed.
This is a really interesting pick right now, as
right,
Zhenlong okay, so this is one of Zhenlong's go-tos. I mean, he loves hyper carries like Twitch and Varus and Vayne. And arguably he's probably best out of all those on Vayne. So this is very much a contra-pick scenario, but it is a bit strange considering that there are so many AD carries on the table. This is 4.9. This is still the land of Twitch. Perhaps he's just not feeling confident.
Right, and the problem right now that Young Glory is facing is that they did lock in the Ryze and the Rengar. So what that means is that Koro is going to run a top Ryze, which probably indicates that he will go for the one that Edward Gaming will be aiming for that solo lane, the standard lane between the Ryze and Young Glory's Jax on their side. But this does mean, and with the Ziggs too, that Young Glory is really looking for the extended team fight. The thing is that when you have, first of all, when you have a teleport Ryze that can flank in from nearly any side of the maps, given the fact that EDG does ward fairly well compared to other Chinese teams, you also have Clear Love on his Rengar, which, Rengar can absolutely blow people up with a proper itemization. Use Syndra is also very, very dangerous. So I fear that given the fact that Young Glory does seek the extended team fight and is trying to, clear out vision from the establish vision on their flanks, but given that Young Glory's vision control isn't all that great, I'm a little bit scared that they won't really be able to use their composition to its full potential just because of the amount of burst on the side of Edward Gaming.
Yeah, it always seems to be a stronger pick ban phase from Edward Gaming, and not to take anything away from Young Glory, they definitely pulled a couple of power moves here, but you look at this lineup, this is built to do one thing. Catch you, burst you, you are completely obliterated, and if they don't let it go to late game, the Jax pickup is going to be completely irrelevant. Zhenlong has a really good late game carry in Vayne, but he has to get her to a certain point before it can really start taking off. Young Glory is taking a huge gamble here.
Right, and I mean, the Syndra pickup, honestly, Devin, the Syndra pickup was just so smart right here because Syndra is a champion that's so flexible despite being really extremely mechanically complex. And the reason that is because Syndra can be built as an assassin. A lot of mid players in solo queue actually build her with the Deathfire Grasp. But Syndra's zone control is also very good. And we know how good Yu's mechanics are. So given that the main threats on the side of Young Glory are that not Cassidy, are the Jax, are the Kazakhs, the Leona's Solar Flare and Zenith blading in. Given the fact that all of Young Glory's threats are melee champions, the potential exists for here, man. EDG. Yeah,
this is going to be huge right now. Getting dragged in, they find a Jax. I don't know if that's what they want, though, and there's Yancer trying to tank up all the damage as Koro. This is not at all one of those safe starts that we've been seeing early on, but Koro and Unstoppable taking a lot of poke from that Ziggs, and there's the disengage. They decide they do not, in fact, want to take that. A little bit too low. Name will add to the ward plethora that's in that bush, and looks like we'll get started off maybe a little more conventional as both teams kind of played chicken with each other in that jungle.
Yeah, fortunately for the side of EDG, sorry, I'm a little bit sick. The top laner for Young Glory did not land a stun onto all 5 members of Edward Gaming. He only landed a stun on that stun onto Clear Love and I believe Name. So good for EDG that they were able to get out of that fight relatively unscathed. And again, Edward Gaming is really looking for the early wards right here because they do want to try to predict where that Jax will go and send Koro into the same lane. And then but then fortunately YG was smart about it and they were able to predict where EDG would invade their side of the jungle.
And they're not done quite yet. They will just get a deep ward over in this blue side, have the option of taking it right now. Looks like they will exercise that as we see this 3-man jungle coming through for Young Glory right now, picking up this blue buff. It is a lane swap completed, though, on the side of EDG, and they will have the pushing advantage for just a moment, as there aren't really that many people in lane. There's 4 in the jungle, and you only see Young Glory's mid laner, Diangoon, sitting there in lane as Vayne is rushing down to solo in this bot lane, but up against Arai is going to be a little bit difficult to handle.
Yeah, that's really awkward from the side of Young Glory. I don't know. I actually refreshed my stream, sorry, but I don't know exactly what YG was looking for there. They might have been trying to set up an invade.
They really want to get these picks early, and oh my goodness, Unstoppable dealing out the damage to Diangoon. He's already at half health, but they're looking to come in for the gank right now, sticking around to bait it in, see if they can get Yancer to come in with the lockup. But they're losing so much experience here. A lot of people on the side of Young Glory are only level 1 still.
Right, and EDG Unstoppable really should know about this just because of how predictable young Chinese teams are when they do grab that Leona, because every time you do see a Leona on the enemy composition, you almost instantly know that that player will, that the support player will try to come and gank you at about 2.5 to 3 minutes.
Oh, speaking of ganks, we're going to find something here. EDG, though, Clearlove going to get absolutely melted as Young Glory has no intention of going solo in any of these. They completely collapse in that side of the jungle. They are leaving, however, Shenlong to fend for himself and farm for himself. He's going to narrowly avoid FCZF's flash and hook. Does not go anywhere as Name can't find the pick on him. Got to be a little frustrated, but first blood in about 3 minutes actually went over to Young Glory, but they really worked hard to earn it. Oh, they're not done yet. Name is dueling it out, but it's a 2-for-1 or 2v1 as FCZF is still there and threatening. I don't think Shenlong can get anywhere near this.
Yeah, he won't be able to. And a really nice play coming out from Young Glory. Clearlove was actually spotted out by that early ward. So the members of YG, 3 members of YG, were able to rotate for the gank into that tri-brush on the top lane. But the really key thing about that fight was the fact that Young Glory got a possession of a buff, and we might see another. Oh, nope. Actually, yeah, Koro decides to back off. Very smart of him. But again, the really big thing about that fight was that Young Glory actually got possession of Edward Gaming's buffs through that. So, really nice advantages gained for the side of YG.
Oh my goodness, here's a bot lane dive. They're going all over Shenlong. They will pick him up, but here comes the teleport in. Name's in trouble. He gets taken down. That's number 1, showing why he's number 1. What an aggressive team that this Young Glory is being right now. They are a little bit up, a tiny bit of gold in the lead just because they've been answering kill for kill. Well, it's only 1 kill on the side of EDG, but they gave it over to Name, and he's the one that they rely on to get steamrolling. FCZF not in the area when that was occurring, and they're still hunting for kills. They are waiting to pick this one up. Yinfu hanging around the mid side. There's Clearlove, though. Neither of them see each other, but they're after each other's heads. I hear that's sort of a thing with the lore, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does sound like that. I don't read my my Summoner's Herald that much as you seem to, but I'll take your word for it.
I always am looking for things. I'm always looking for nice fiction to read up, I guess. But
okay.
All right, so we're starting the game. Maybe I'll show it to you sometime, Evo. There we go.
I'm kind
of. That's like when somebody comes to your door and wants you to like read a book or something. No.
Yeah.
All right. So the lane swap is being redone as the top laner from EDG, Koro, and of course Shenlong are now taking their sides in the top lane just for a moment. It looks like Jax is going to TP back, or at least he's going to be heading back to base as he'll actually continue to go bot. So Young Glory continually doing this very strange map movement in the early game, trying to find as many picks as they possibly can, really touching every lane but mid.
I mean, this is all because the side of Young Glory really wants to avoid a confrontation between the Jax and that Ryze, because the Koro's Ryze will absolutely stomp on Young Glory's top laner. But I don't blame YEG for having that sentiment, because the matchup is very poor, and does go very heavily in Koro's.
Oh, they found Ziggs though. He's going to barely get away with a whole lot of Summoner's Burn. Had to take down his flash and his heal just to get out of the situation. Plus, he had a nicely timed satchel charge. And there is Yinfu. He is never leaving this lane. He's sticking around like Koro is right now, as Koro and Unstoppable combined to do a pretty decent amount of damage, but they can't quite find the kill. Young Glory proving very elusive this game.
Yeah, but Young Glory is actually in a very nice position right now, because they do, and I apologize to the fans who notice how kind of unsynced we are, but I'm trying my best. So they do understand the fact that their wave is pushed to their own tower in the top lane.
Jax gets away. So
Right, the Jax does get away. So oh my goodness, he actually dodged a lot right there. So I'll continue for a bit. Anyways, so Young Glory realized the fact that their top lane was completely pushed in their favor. So what they were able to do is that they were able to predict where the members of EDG would try to make plays. And given the fact that all 5 members of EDG roamed to the bottom lane to make a play, giving up a blue buff is not bad at all.
No, I mean, it really was a small price to pay, and Young Glory, they've kept this slim lead here as they've just managed to not get taken down any of those times. Very, very close. Name will answer this with the turret, though, and this should even it up. Koro still trying to defend away from Shenlong. He wants to duel him, though. He's at 6, but he gets locked up under tower. This is a dangerous spot to be in as he was tanking aggro for just a minute, but he's got 2 levels on Koro, so life will be okay, but they're looking to collapse here onto Koro, and Clearlove just clearing out that red camp on his own side for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, and just now, obviously after some of the excitements of the early game, we are getting back into the normal lull. If you're a member of both EDG and YG would ideally like to see their compositions ramp up towards the mid game, because that is where several members of both teams will hit their power spikes. And we did see Young Glory, despite losing their blue buff in their own jungle to Clearlove before, they were able to secure a blue buff for Jianggun's Ziggs. So really nice early movements coming out on the side of Young Glory. You have to be impressed, especially given how much of a stomp the first game was.
Yeah, this is definitely looking a lot even. They are hell-bent on making this a game for Edward Gaming, and if they do win this, it will be their first win in LPL this summer season. So this is something that they want very badly, and if they can take a game off Edward, it's definitely going to make a statement, but they have to do something soon. They are looking very, very... there's a lot of pressure on them, I guess you would say, because coming up for LSPL, this is a team that generally has been somewhat hyped. They're the sister team to Invictus Gaming. LSPL teams are sometimes considered, stronger than their LPL counterparts just because of the variety that you face there. And this is huge for them if they can manage to take a win off this one. They already down 1, so that the best they can do is draw this series. But they really, really want it. You can tell in the way they're playing right now. A lot of spirit here.
Right. I mean, it is a little bit embarrassing to be this behind, given the fact that for the most part, the LPL is very much even in terms of quality of play throughout the board. Besides the former LSPL teams, World Elite Academy and Young Glory, almost nearly all of the teams in the table are very much even.
They're going to catch Ziggs here. He's going to go down without too much. Yu actually spends his ultimate just to lock him up and secure that kill. So it's 2-2 right now. But
nice kill.
Yeah, that was nice.
Right, but as I was saying before, Young Glory's actually been in the LPL before. They were in the LPL 2 seasons ago, but I believe they got knocked out by Energy Pacemaker Hong Kong. So it's very, of course, it's very nice for them to be in the LPL again, but they're not that successful here. So hopefully they do pull out a win. If not here, then in another game, most probably against World Elite Academy, because that's their best chance.
Well, they've definitely had a lot of not an easy schedule to start things off either. So YG, they've definitely done their best, but they get these really close games that just haven't gone their way, and then they have, of course, the stomps like we saw in the last game. And already this is a very, very different game. They did focus a lot of effort onto banning out Diangun, and I kind of am a little bit curious about that. I don't really know why Edward Gaming expended so many of their ban resources just to focus on the mid laner when arguably top lane's a little stronger.
Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of Edward Gaming's bans, mostly because, well, first of all, the ban strategy that Edward Gaming decided to employ for the second match of this first set, they weren't unique at all. Those are very much standard bans by any team playing Young Glory, and that's because, and they do see this, they are taking this dragon right
on the dragon. Whoa, it nearly gets stolen as FCZF waiting in the wings to land a sneaky hook, but he doesn't have the timing quite to pull it off, as that was a well-timed smite out of Yinfu. And once again, trading in the mid lane, Yu and Diangun continue to make it even.
Yeah, nice job by Yinfu, but what I was saying before was that Diangun hasn't shown that much success with champions besides LeBlanc and possibly that Yasuo, since the Yasuo did perform adequately in the first game despite Young Glory getting stomped. So I don't necessarily disagree with some of the bans, and I think, until Diangun starts to seriously expand his champion pool, I mean, I'm sure he can play a lot of, an abundance of champions, but just until he begins to play multiple champions on the LPL level, then it's not a bad strategy at all. You can even argue that his LeBlanc isn't at the real LPL level yet. So, I mean, this entire team is having problems, but Diangun just seems to be the scapegoat at this point.
Yeah, it's a little bit odd because this is a team that definitely has a lot of issues, and they're all kind of considered a little bit, maybe not underperforming, but just in general don't have the strongest pools. And whoop, Ziggs is going to duel it out with you, but he's got nothing left in the tank, so a satchel charge away, mana being spent left and right, and he hasn't really had a chance to secure a blue buff this game.
Yeah, I mean, he did secure the first one at around 7 minutes, but Young Glory doesn't I don't think Young Glory exactly knows when the timer for their own blue buff is, but they do have the timer for the enemy blue buff. So it'll be interesting to see that interaction and whether EDG and or YG can pull off some any special plays at the enemy's buffs. But it does look like that the buff on YG's side does respond.
Yep, so they're actually not taking it just yet as they want to wait for the chance to let Diangun get back to lane. Hanging out in this bush and really hoping for someone to wander by it, but nothing doing, so Yenser will just go into that other brush and clear out a ward himself. This is going to be where Ziggs should probably get a bit more of a power spike. He actually has kept up in farm despite being focused so heavily, but that's a Ziggs for you.
Yeah, and I mean, Young Glory, again, Young Glory is in a really good position. The top lane minion wave is pushing towards the side of YG, so they can go ahead and freeze that lane. They have the rest of their members grouped up looking for picks like a Leona should be doing. They also have the Vayne for... Sorry, they have the Vayne for Zhenlong, and obviously, you mentioned before that Vayne is basically Zhenlong's pocket champion, is the champion that he knows for. And when you play Vayne when you do play Vayne competitively, you really do have to look for those picks, just because Vayne is so good when fighting in the jungle.
Absolutely. And, the longer this game goes, the better it goes in favor of Young Glory, and I think that's what they're banking on. They don't want to let Edward Gaming get into a comfortable groove like they were able to and just completely womp on them as they did last game. If they can stall this one out, the Ziggs will definitely help with that. The heavy jungle presence that Yinfu's been bringing will help with that. If they can stall this game out, they hit late game Vayne, they hit late game Jax, and there is absolutely nothing that Edward Gaming can do at that point.
Yeah, I mean, we can't really count out the Chinese team's tendency to throw games. However, you are very much right.
Cough, Baron Pit?
Yeah, cough, Baron Pit. Lord Nasher, as we like to affectionately
He requires
call
exactly one throw.
Right, but then the thing, yeah, I mean, it's when you are able to pick up the Jax in the first or second rotation, Ziggs is always a really smart pick just because you're able to clear waves for what seems like forever. And Young Glory's composition does a lot of things. It clears waves well, it split pushes extremely well, it engages well because they do have Leona, Yansir on that solar flare with Leona, and it also team fights very well because in an extended team fights you do have the Jax and you do have the Vayne on Zhenlong. So it does, not a master of a particular style of play, but a jack of all trades, rather.
You know what's kind of funny about this composition from Young Glory? What it really reminds me of is how Edward Gaming used to be. And I'm talking about, not at the beginning of this season to split, but a little bit earlier than that, when they relied really heavily on you to run these late game champions like Ziggs, or rather stall champions like Ziggs, so they could get into late game carry positions. This composition is something that Edward Gaming really should be familiar with. It's something they relied on very heavily for the longest time. Uh-oh, Unstoppable going to get locked up. He's going to lantern to safety, though. Bombs are going to land on absolutely nothing.
And I would like to announce that since I did tab into the HD stream, I believe we are synced up again, so thank God.
Oh my goodness. High five all the way through the internet from California to Korea, man. This is awesome.
Yeah.
All right,
so
cool.
Yeah, I'm so excited, man. I can't believe how happy.
Dude, I can't contain all these happies right now.
If I were on Twitch TV right now, I would Bible thump. But unfortunately, I don't have time for the fans. We do have to make sure that we do get this game on the road. And then at this point, it looks like all of the matchups right now between Young Glory and EG are even. There's only separated by about 100 gold, but I suspect it's even less. So
that Dragon's going to be a hot ticket in a minute.
Yeah, the Dragon team fight is really going to be important and you really have to wonder whether you're YG, because obviously if you're a member of Young Glory, you're feeling fairly good about yourself, especially given how badly the first game went. But you do have to wonder whether you want to team fight, because should EDG get the correct flank with Koro's Rise, and should Clearlove put himself in a good position to completely burst Zhenlong's Vayne, that team fight will go very badly. Young Glory's support Yansir also has to decide whether to use the Solar Flare offensively or defensively, just because there are so many threats for the rather immobile champion. But we do see, oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness, the hook is going to go wide to the right, but Yu doesn't really care about that. He manages to pick it up. A lot of flashes expended in that to make sure they secure it. FCZF and Unstoppable both, as well as a pair of ignites, but they do take down Diangoon, and they're really favoring this mid lane. There's been so much pressure put on the Young Glory mid lane. Oh, they're not done yet, though. Yeah, sure's going to go in. Oh my goodness, he gets tossed on back with a Scatter the Weak. There's the ultimate coming out. Unstoppable being focused down very quickly. Teleport now coming in for Edward Gaming. They're going to block this one up, no problem. And they had nothing in the tank. Young Glory just going to bail out, abort the mission. They're diving on towers, and they're burning flashes along the way. Kha'Zix goes down now, only turning for Jax. This is almost going to be an ace, if not for the fact that Ziggs comes back up, and all of a sudden, Edward Gaming right back in dominant form. Gigantic lead. Dragon is open. Tower's going to go down, and it's a big lead right now for EDG.
That was the swing that EDG was looking for. Devin, I mentioned to you before that the reason why, and we're going to go over this team fight really quickly, but just look at this beautiful Scatter the Weak from Unstoppable. Such a nice play.
Already had gone in on it, and it was turned around. What incredible timing.
Yeah, Name was actually able to relatively dodge the Solar Flare as well with his Relentless Pursuit, so just nice, really nice mechanical plays coming out from the side of EDG. And, that's one of the reasons why the members of EDG were originally recruited, just because they were so mechanically spectacular. We get to see that right here. Devin, I mentioned before that the reason why Unstoppable's Syndra pick was so strong, and I do believe that they were able to grab the Dragon. Yeah, it is gone. The reason why the Syndra pick was so strong is because it does so well against sources of melee, engage, or crowd control. You saw right there that Syndra pick in action. Scatter the Weak, just completely zone out the engage coming from YG. Easy fight, easy ace.
Absolutely, and here's the problem right now, free answer though. The Leona pick, there's a reason it hasn't been picked as much. Oh, goodness, Nami's going to dive into way too many people. He will Relentless Pursuit out of that ultimate, but he goes down all the same. That was just an unfortunate face check as we were giving him so much praise over to Edward Gaming.
Yeah, that's a classic Name thing to do, though. One of the reasons why, I've always said that Deft was better than Name. Well, I teeter back and forth, but one of the reasons is because just Name face checks so many bushes. Also, he plays so aggressively and times where he doesn't need to. When you're a member, if you're a member of EDG right now, you know that your team is in the, league. You know that you have the teleport advantage. But we might see another fight right here.
Going to answer here, Clear Love. He's going to force the Vayne ultimate right there, and they're diving straight for him. There's a gigantic Syndra ult, blowing him up with the balls. They're chasing on the answer, forcing him to flash away. Clear Love going to locking him up on the bullet. He's getting bursted down, and that is just so much explosive power on the side of Edward Gaming, and this is what you're talking about. The pick composition does not work when you are outnumbered and outclassed, and every single time Edward Gaming has been proving this once and once again. Name now dueling in the mid lane, and Diangoon has nothing in the tank. He's just tossing bombs out and hoping something will land. And if he stays too long, though, FCZF could handle him, and he'll be able to get away from the time being. They're still chasing, though. Oh, no, there's the satchel charge. He can't get over the wall, though. He's going to request a little bit of help, trying to bait out. Will manage to pick up a kill. The hook landed on him while he was dead, and he gets answered for that one. But wow, I love those animations.
Oh my god. FCZF gives up. Oh my goodness, what a play.
Yeah, that was a bit of a misplay from FCZF, but they still answered back.
FCZF.
That is his first death, by the way. You're having a little trouble with that one, aren't you?
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, the answer. Look at the damage that Unstoppable can bring. This is incredible. At a 3-0-5 Syndra, and he's only sitting on the finished Unholy Grail, the Stork Shoes, and that needlessly large rod. Well, I guess you'll see how needlessly it is, because it's been bringing him so much damage this game.
Right, and he hasn't gone back to buy yet. He's going to be able to invest that gold. So
let's talk trinkets really quick for a second, because there has been so much vision denial this game, and the blue trinket picked up by Name as well.
Yeah, blue trinket.
Okay, we don't have any time because they're finding number one, and he is going to get bursted down immediately. The three-man kill squad from Clear Love, Name, and Koro just nukes him down like nothing, and YG, they're just looking like a wounded deer right now.
Yeah, 20 minutes is around the time that YG usually tilts.
Oh no, he got another catch! That is FCZF popping everything he has, but he wasn't in the area to finish it off. He will get the kill with the Ignite, finally, but it took so much to bring him down, and YG taking no chances. They're roaming completely together now.
And unfortunately for the side of Young Glory, there are no objectives to take on any side of the map right now, so that's why they aren't making any plays toward, they aren't trending towards any certain direction. But you just see how powerful EDG's composition right now is, and why they just so heavily outclassed the side of Young Glory. Yeah, YG needs to realize that, at this point in the game, they need to avoid engage from the side of EDG and ward their flanks well. They have a nice freeze in the top lane, but unfortunately, they're just being really aggressive. And there are times when aggressiveness is good, but when you're against an EDG team that so clearly has superior ward coverage and superior vision control, then, I mean, when you demand a fight with EDG, if you demand a fight with, let's say you get a pick onto Unstoppable, right? Who's to say that Clearlove isn't right there backing him up? Or who's to say that Koro won't just teleport in? Or who's to say that FCZF won't just bring Unstoppable back out with, a Dark Passage or bring somebody else back in? I mean, there are so many threats on the side of EDG right now, and there's nothing that Young Glory can really do.
This is why the pick comp was so dangerous for YG. It was clearly an aggressive strategy, and they were trying to keep them on the back foot, but it's backfired in that they've just not been able to sustain through fights. They have the late game on their side, they have a Jax and they have a Vayne, but at this rate, they've fallen significantly behind in items. They can't contest objectives, they're never really in the area, and they've been relegated to split pushing. EDG now looking for this brush of death strategy that we've seen pretty frequently. This is the patient EDG side. Well, maybe not so patient for FCZF. He's going to wander out of the bush and reveal. I don't think Diangun's going anywhere near that.
Right, and unfortunately, I mean, the problem right now for EDG and the reason why they are trying to set picks is because, A, none of the objectives that they want to contest are up. I don't think at this point they can seriously think about contesting Baron just yet. And the Dragon still has another 30 seconds to spawn, even though that should be free for them. But EDG's wave clear isn't that great. Syndra doesn't have the best wave clear, even with that Scatter of the Week. Additionally, there's no one to tank turrets yet on the side of Edward Gaming. Koro, with his Rise, will eventually be able to tank turret shots, but not at this point in the game.
Yeah. Oh, well, look at this little cheeky pull out of there, and that's of course one of the things they do. Oh, excuse me. Speaking of pulls, they find Yancer and no follow-up available. They did not want to tank onto Leona. Again, this is what YG needs to do right now, is just stall this out as long as possible. They need to pull an old EDG and just clear waves, try to establish some map pressure, contest Barons, contest Dragons, and they should be able to get into the late game with, maybe not a lead, but an evening up. But they're not going anywhere near this Dragon right now, so it's going to be free for Edward Gaming.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately for the side of Young Glory, Diangun does have the Zig, so that does mean he'll be able to clear waves relatively well. He does also have the 2 kills, and so he was able to pick up, the Magic Pen Boots, Athene's Unholy Grail. He also has the Rabadon's Death Cap. So Diangun is looking fairly good for where the members of Young Glory are right now. But but since YG's team composition is all about engaging team fighting, there's nothing that they can really do. They can't even stall out that long, given the fact that Koro is currently 1-0-3 and building that Warren's Mail probably into the Frozen Heart. Sorry, so EDG is going to be looking very good, in a few seconds. And I mean, the adaptation, of course. I talked about the fact that both YG wasn't great at defending despite the Zigs, and EDG wasn't great at sieging. Name did make the adaptation, and he did pick up the Static Shiv, as did Young Glory's Zhenlong. So both of them really smart, just concept thinking, map awareness, situational awareness coming out from both AD carries.
Those OG and TSM rotations are working out well for him. So Young Glory, they are able to kind of stem the bleeding right now, as they haven't been caught out. They've been getting a little bit smarter about how they push waves where and when. The issue is, if there's any engagements that happen, it's going to be Edward Gaming taking them. It's going to be on their own terms, and you never know if it's just FCZF or if he's got Unstoppable there. At this point, Unstoppable can 1v1 anyone. In fact, he might be able to 1v2. And then there's the threat of Name. Well, clear love. Yeah, he's going on to Yinfu too, and he'll knock him into his own tower. But this is a siege beginning right now for Edward Gaming. They've got 4 here as Rise continues to split push. Can they mobilize in time? Yancer looking for the flank. Can he get it? Name's taking low. Actually, Ziggs is going to ult for the engage,
flash.
And they whiff because the flash comes in. Yancer nearly gets them locked up, but they're not done yet. Zhenlong on the chase. They'll back away this time, but they had to spend a lot of ults just to make them go away for the time being.
Yeah, and I mean, split pushing going on both sides of the map. I wonder if Core's going to teleport up there, or they might just look for the kill. And a really nice.
Find out number 1 though.
He does get out. Number 1, he does get away on that Jax, but really nice flash coming out from the side, coming out from Unstoppable Syndra. I mean, you have to wonder whether had Young Glory gotten that, gotten that Zenith Blade onto Unstoppable and started the subsequent team fight, missed hook. You have to wonder whether YG would have won that fight, and you kind of, I would have had a little hope if I was a member of Young Glory, just because Leona was sticking onto both the AD carry and mid laner of, oh my goodness.
Oh no, they're going to find out Diangoon. And he doesn't go down for a second. The delayed response with the Ignite tick clears him up at the end of the day. Very unsquishy, actually, but they clear him out, too. This is just a ridiculously bursty composition. Edward Gaming now going to lock up everybody. Well, they're going to lock up Vayne. So Zhenlong, he's taking low. Colling's going to come out, picks him up on the outside of it. Name gets that kill and gets Lantern back. It's all of a sudden a 5v3 as they're still looking for kills, now turning onto the tower. It's going to fall without any contest.
And there's going to be this inhibitor turret is going to go, too, given the fact that both the sources of wave clear from Young Glory are down. I mean, EDG is so strong right now, and they can fight for anything.
Young Glory had a chance for this comeback, and they just have not been able to mount anything here. The defense is crumbling. They're knocking down the inhibitor. It's 27.5 minutes into the game. EDG completely running the map right now. It looks like Clearlove's going to split up from the rest of the team and just continue to split push while the rest of the team, well, they're looking to mobilize. Not for Dragon. That won't be up for a minute or two unless the timers are broken once again. They're just going to back away.
Because, since Young Glory's, since number 1 on his Jax was actually split pushing the last time Young Glory demanded a fight, I'm fairly sure. I mean, they probably built this composition centered around the Jax split pushing, right? The thing is that if you're going to get a, build a team composition around number 1's Jax, then there was, this is going to be a desperate.
Okay, so here's what's happening, Souldra. It's 28 minutes. We're down. It's time to 5-man Baron. It's going down right now, but these are these throws you're always talking about. We're always talking about. This could be really dangerous. It's almost going to go down. Can they get it off in time? I don't know if they can. Everybody's going and they get it. It gets stolen out. Clearlove with the clutch smite. Yancer goes down. Everybody is falling right now on the side of Young Glory, and this could be the ace and the game. They've got Zhenlong in the back of the pit. He's tumbling away, but he can't do anything against this 4-man squad. They did take Unstoppable down, so they traded 1 for 3, but really a consolation prize at this point. Edward Gaming, after recovering from all of that, find themselves a Baron and 2 members up at the very least, and that's just going to force the surrender. Game number 2. Young Glory completely demoralized and bow out. That is game number 2, and it's a 2-0 for Edward Gaming.
Yeah, you could kind of tell that Young Glory, I mean, that was a desperation move. It wasn't that bad of a decision given the fact that they were so far behind. Additionally, Zhenlong had that Bleed of the Rune King to quickly take down the Baron, but you could kind of tell that the game was over. But now, Devin, we get to move on to the my primetime match for tonight.
Oh yes, it is welcome to primetime. So there will be a bit of a break, and once we do come back, it will be that next one. For those of you who are just tuning in, it is going to be World Elite. Top of the class right now, they really are the World Elite right now, taking on Starhorn Royal Club. Well, I won't say I'm up and coming, but they have definitely made a few roster adjustments, wouldn't you say?
I mean, World Elite is looking very good right now, despite the fact that the last game we saw the last game we saw with World Elite, I think it was Nick and I saw them take on Young Glory, and it's obvious, especially from this game. Yeah, that YG does not offer the stiffest of competition, but this really should be a good indication of where things stand at the LPL. Because I like to try to talk big at times and say that I know everything about the Chinese LPL, but at this point I don't know how the standings are going to end. The standings are going to end up. So I'm really excited to see the Starhorn Royal Club World Elite game.
Absolutely. Well, we'll leave a little bit more of the talking about that to when the game does come up. Guys, we will be on a break for just a little while. As you can see on your screen, next game will start at 1900 China time. And I believe in the Reddit thread we have up, we can translate all those times for you. So whatever time zone you're in, be sure to check it out. Should be in roughly an hour, so we will be getting it right back to you guys when it goes in. And stay tuned. You're watching the LPL in English. Once again, I'm PiraTechnics. He is Souldra. Guys, don't go anywhere. Or not infographic. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore.
Good job,
once
dude.
again, dude, we're back. Oh man, what a night this has been already. And game number 1 being taken by Edward Gaming in huge style. You can see the stats up there, 24-4 kills. My goodness, what a stomping. And frankly, I think it might have been a little bit expected as, just the differences in standing alone.
Yeah, I mean, really, a good indication of when when not EDG plays well is when their jungle and top laner do get going. Koro is one of the best players in China, and Clearlove, obviously, as I mentioned before to you before we were even streaming. In fact, he is my X factor of almost each and every game that Edward Gaming does play, and he did get the MVP this game. So, Clearlive played well, and when Clearlive does play well, it means all things are, for the most part, clicking for the side of Edward Gaming. Young Glory, they had a lot of things to work on. First of all, I think that they gave up a lot of strong power picks, even though I do not know if they were expecting the Karthus to come out of Edward Gaming's mid laner Yu. But at the same time, there's nowhere to go from up for the side of Young Glory at this point, because they're basically getting stomped nearly every game by, most teams.
Yeah, and a little bit troublesome for them. But
right.
they did try to keep it as close as they could. That you just saw the team fights not turning their way. And frankly, EDG definitely seemed to outpick them, that very unlikely seeming Karthus pick. I think he's picking up in popularity since, of course, the rework not quite making it to China just yet, but will be very, very soon, I believe.
Right. Yeah, I do think that it... Sorry, can you repeat that? You just cut off slightly
the rework. Well, the visual update certainly hasn't made it quite yet, as we saw in the last game. But there are, of course, just increasing variety of champions that are being picked up a little more popularly across a lot of the regions.
Yeah, definitely.
We saw Clearlove on Jarvan this time, which is something that we haven't seen as much for a while in China, especially with the influx of junglers that like that style, such as Insect, who we'll see a little bit later tonight.
Yeah, I mean... No, I don't think we should be talking about that game, because I feel like if we do start, I'm just not going to stop, because that game really is going to decide.
You have got a spiel that's going to come out. I can't wait to hear this. Okay, I hope I get a little bit of a chance to say one or two things, but I do love listening to your insight, Hubo. You have a whole lot of knowledge that I aspire to.
It helps when you have the sexiest voice in League of Legends. No, but Young Glory does lock in the Jax and the Kazakhs here. Jax was actually played by Koro in the last game too. Fairly large success. And Jax and Kazakhs are another set of champions. But the Vayne lock-in we do see. So Vayne is fairly weak in 4.9, and I do think that she's even weaker in 4.10, despite the fact that none of her items really got that heavily nerfed.
This is a really interesting pick right now. As okay, so this is... And Kale taken away, that's just kind of a standard ban.
Yeah, I mean, Kale is another good ban for Diangun, though. And, the Yasuo and the LeBlanc is banned nearly every game a team is on blue side, or, red side too, against Diangun, just because Diangun hasn't really posted any other significant performances with any other mid lane champions besides with that LeBlanc. His Yasuo wasn't even that great. So, and also, of note is the fact that Young Glory banned Braum on red side. Braum is on the first rotation status, either picked or banned in nearly every Chinese game. So Braum is incredibly strong right now. But Edward Gaming decides to lock in their support first, Thresh, and we all know how good FCZF is on that champion.
Over on the other side, Young Glory looking to capitalize on a few power picks that were left open. Jax, one of those pick ban champions, almost 100% of the time gets immediately scooped up right there by number one. And the jungler, also Yinfu, he goes over to Kha'Zix. This is something that's been seeing a huge revitalization, but starting to make a statement again.
Yeah, Jarvan is definitely... I consider Jarvan, right now the third or fourth best jungler. He's really strong, really strong right now, especially with the buffs to his martial cadence, which did, we are in 4.9, so they are in this patch, in fact. A lot of people, seem to have the misconception that we're incredibly behind when we're actually not. So, and I do believe 4.10 is coming next week.
Very soon. It's already in OGN.
Yeah, it is already in OGN. They are playing with that tonight. I believe the KT Arrows and I believe the two teams from the Najin organization are facing off. So I would be there if I wasn't here with you, Devin, casting the EDG and YG game, and obviously we're into picks and bans.
For what it's worth, I'm really happy to have you here, Hubo. Yeah, picks and bans already starting up. Yeah, here we go. On the side of Edward Gaming, Yasuo banned out, of course. That's very much targeted at Diangun. He plays a pretty good Yasuo, and he's a little underwhelming on a lot of other champions, so they're really trying to thin out his pool a lot more, also focusing LeBlanc on him.